Hi, I'm Alex Rain, and we are here outside the John F. Moss Library on the campus of Texas A&M University, Texarkana. And here with me is Nicole Brisco. She is a teacher at Pleasant Grove, an art teacher, and also a very accomplished artist. And we're here today because you have an exhibition currently in the library, and it's called Ascension. And how many pieces do you have in this exhibition here?
I have approximately 60 pieces up now. I plan to add about 10 more pieces before the reception on the 18th. But it's a pretty expansive show, and it has a narrative that runs through it, but there's some pieces that were created a while back, but most of them are current pieces.
And as far as like the chronology, how many years does this collection span as far as like the earliest piece in there?
The earliest piece is probably maybe about 18 months old, but there's probably only about 10 pieces that were made outside of the 2-month period that I created the remainder of the work, about 50 pieces.
And the title Ascension, in your discussion earlier, you kind of talked about how that came to be as far as the thematic elements running through the paintings. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit as far as what would you say the overarching message you're trying to communicate with this collection is?
Well, I think with the term, I kind of leave that up to being a pretty open-ended term, and I do like when the viewer is looking at the work, not to totally define that, but I think that when the viewer does look at the work, they can see the idea of weightlessness, transcending feeling in the work.
Right.
And not every piece, but the majority of the work. Some of them are preparation works, but it really is just mostly about transcending or moving from one place to another.
And how long have you been painting? What's your earliest memory of picking up a crayon or a paintbrush and just kind of dabbling? And when did you realize that, you know, I got a knack for this?
I'd probably say my earliest memory.
Really?
My earliest memory is probably of doing art. You know, as a child, I was encouraged to be creative, and in some ways that was a positive, in some ways it wasn't. Sometimes it was something that it would fill my time and space, and I wasn't challenged to other things. But ultimately, it was what I was the most comfortable with, so my mother encouraged me to do it.
And what would you say was probably your biggest artistic influence, or maybe the earliest one that you can kind of remember? Perhaps, you know, seeing a painting or a work of art and being kind of provoked or challenged by it.
I don't know if, well, it's a lot of things kind of come together to inspire an artist, but if I could think about to particular works, I mean, you know, especially in painting and figurative work, probably I saw an exhibition in Washington with Singer Sargent, and his works were really incredible, but at the same time, they were not works that I would have necessarily appreciated. They were very traditional portraits, very straightforward, and I would have never thought I would have had a response to it, and I actually had a response to that. Normally my work, or the work that I would appreciate, would be a little more conceptual, a little more, I don't know, thematic based, or, you know, it has a narrative behind it, but I was really inspired by that. But probably more than work would be people, you know, somewhere along the way. It could even been experience or something that I had in a negative way that could have inspired me somehow. Not always positive experiences.
And when did you realize that you wanted to teach art?
Actually, I started out in college. Let's see, I was a pre-orthodontics major.
Okay, well,
it was
a shift there.
Yeah, I was actually highly stressed from it, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I wasn't feeling necessarily comfortable in my skin in life, and I decided to take an art class to, you know, just kind of have a point of relief. And I had a professor, Dr. Martin. He was actually roommates with Jim Morrison in college, so he was quite the character. One day he was walking around, and he noticed that I was never doing my work, but I was actually helping other people do theirs, because I seemed to like that, to give instruction to other people. And he asked me if I ever thought about becoming an art teacher. And I said, no, not till you said so, but I think I'll change my major. So, because he really could see that I was enjoying what I was doing, and so that, you know, I had to make a decision what I wanted out of my life. Was I going to want something that I was going to get something out of and enjoy, or I was going to do something that probably was more based on the financial side of, you know, the decision. You know, I mean, I probably would have enjoyed that, but in the long run, this gives me more.
And how long have you been teaching now?
This is my 15th year. I started right out of college and have been at Pleasant Grove since my first year at 22 years old. And I really do, I've loved every moment of it. It's a challenge teaching, especially creatively, because your creativity can kind of be drained when you're working creatively all day long and with students and all the personal needs they have. But I really actually grow artistically a lot from them, because I think that there's something really beneficial to watching your students maybe achieve more than you, and then that challenging you to want to do more. So my students are very, very high achieving. They've got so many awards and scholarships nationally that I think that's pushed me. In fact, much of their work in high school is stronger than some of my college work. So I like that, actually.
You talked about needing the chaos and needing to kind of solve a problem. So it's almost like you're putting a puzzle together as you're working. Is that beneficial? Is that the flip side of that, being around the students, maybe perhaps seeing them approach a problem or situation in a different way artistically than perhaps you would have done it? And along the lines of talking about like artistic trends and how it doesn't have to be perfect and how that's kind of detrimental in some ways. Yeah. Do you actively encourage them to approach things in non-traditional ways, or is that foundation important, to be able to know how to do it perfect before you deconstruct it?
Okay, to the first part of the question, when you're talking about, you know, needing the chaos with my students, I think a part of it becomes self-reflective, because you're listening. A huge part of teaching art is not actually the production of art, but it's the relationship between the students and guiding them without pushing them. So you're seeing a lot of your own personal attributes in them, your flaws, you know, whether it be the I can't do this side of it, or this is too much, or I've procrastinated, or whatever. So you're having this constant feeling of self-reflection. It's the idea that probably the people that, well, I have heard this, that the people that have the most problems are maybe counselors or psychologists or something like this, but you're actually having to be forced to engage with your own issues. And watching someone go through that artistically all day long, it's like having an outside view of yourself, because you're working with so many different personalities. The second part of the question again?
Do you feel it's necessary to instill in them the importance of breaking those rules? And I mean, do you encourage them to kind of color outside the lines, to use the expression? And is it important that they have that foundation to know how to do it perfect before they deconstruct it? Well,
yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that challenging them to just get comfortable in making mistakes so they can learn and grow, for sure. But I mean, I guess more importantly, just thinking about students, it's like they need the guidance, but you can't cripple them with too much information. So as a teacher who teaches, in my philosophy and when I travel around the country doing, is I talk about the idea of having open-ended curriculum. But what people don't realize is having an open-ended idea to teach a student is so much more difficult, because you're taking and funneling all these ideas and then training them how to bring them back in tight to an idea. Whereas a teacher who might traditionally just say, this is what we're going to do, it's you pretty much get the same answer across the board, much like you would get in a math class. So, right. You know, the creative aspect of it, you know, that is the most important thing above, you know, the idea of making mistakes. But I want them to feel comfortable and know that pretty much every mistake is fixable in life or art. I mean, it's all fixable. There's not anything that can't be fixed, even to the point where you just start over again.
Right.
Yeah, you've just lost some time.
When you're working, you said you'll kind of work on a piece for a little bit and then maybe put it down. On average, how many pieces will you have going at one time?
Well, if I'm doing something really large like this is a pretty large body of work. I mean, right. 60 pieces in that period of time. I'm trying to think back to just even looking at the space around me. There's so much stuff. Oh man, it could be anywhere between 2 and 20, maybe. And they're all in my head floating in one. It's like a domino effect. When I'm working on one, it will lend me, or I will look at an image of one thing, and then all of a sudden it trickle back through my head like a Rolodex of what else I have over here that could work this way. And it kind of had a completely different purpose. But, you know, then you kind of repurpose it as you're thinking and going in another direction.
And as far as when you're working, since you are a teacher and you have kind of a schedule that, you know, you have to be at the school at this time, a lot of artists kind of refer to being in that zone when you're working and things are clicking. Does that pose some problems? Have you ever run into a problem where you just had to get it out and at the exclusion of any other thing going on at that particular moment?
No, I probably do best when I say truly in a zone where I've removed myself from most other things. You know, I say artistically at the end of the day, it's difficult. I say turn it on and off. But it's better for me to be kind of in a zone to do something. So when I'm ready to make art, I'm in it, and it's almost a bit of a, I don't know, it's almost like you don't hear or feel the things going around you. You're just kind of in that mode of making and working, and you kind of ignore most of the other things going on around you in your life.
A couple of quick questions as far as your role as a teacher and an educator. Do you feel that people are losing sight of the importance of arts in education due to budget concerns, and how important is that to give children an exposure to art, not only say in elementary but through junior high, high school, and beyond?
Well, I can actually tell you from a national, I'm the National Director of Secondary Art Education for the country, and one of the biggest things that I've seen is the struggle that teachers have on a day-to-day art making practice in their classroom is budgetary concerns, money's being taken away. Sometimes it has purpose in them thinking that this program isn't good enough, or it's not something that is important. But sometimes it really is due to lack of funds, and you have to go to your community for support in that. But you know, art is, several years ago we had a bill, No Child Left Behind, and art is actually core curriculum equal to math, science, any of your other core classes that we kind of traditionally think of, tested classes. But a lot of people don't realize that everything on earth, pretty much, not made outside of the power of an artist's hands, was created through, an artist made this, all of this, whether it be an architect, a person who designed your shoes, and we often don't give enough credit to it, and kids aren't really told that they can use this as a tool and a creative outlet in life and actually make a living at it. So I think most of it's just kind of more downplayed societally. Especially when you are in a small town, you don't see it around you all the time. So I think it's difficult for kids to see the vision of what that could be in their life. So it's really up to teachers to open that door, whether it be through the internet or taking them somewhere or just inspiring them to want to do that, knowing that that's a possibility in their life. So, it definitely, it's very, very important in kids' lives. It's the main thing as far as creative problem solving, and that's probably the number one thing that employers look for, and we don't put a lot of emphasis on it.
And after this exhibition, do you have other exhibitions in the works, and what are your long-term goals as an artist? I don't know if most artists have long-term goals. We're just in the moment, kind of. But no, I don't have anything. Your biggest hurdle is getting through something that's so expensive. You're only thinking about that. But it seems to me that opportunity just comes. I'm a fairly young artist for having as many shows as I've had. Most people don't have solo shows until they're in their 40s and 50s, and that's a big deal. And this is probably my 5th or 6th solo show, so I feel really confident that just the work speaks for itself and the word gets out, and it gives me another opportunity. I don't really typically seek opportunity, but I just kind of let it unfold for me, and then I know that it's time to pull everything back out again and get down to business. I mean, outside of just the art making that goes on in between, but really pushing myself creatively and artistically, and even just physically, to be able to do it. Awesome. And we're here again at Texas A&M University outside the John F. Moss Library, where Nicole Brisco's exhibition, Ascension, is on display. Nicole, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.